Welcome to The Art of Hunting, a podcast that explores the world of wildlife art through the eyes of one of the industry's most talented creators, Ryan Kirby. So whether you're a fellow artist, designer, hunter, or simply someone who appreciates the beauty of the natural world, join us on The Art of Hunting with Ryan Kirby and discover the passion and dedication that drives him.
Episode
5
of the Art of Hunting podcast.
5.
Yep, we've made it. We've survived 5.
I can't believe we've talked this long.
And we've even done it too. I mean, we've been pretty good about if we're gonna miss one, if I'm gone, we double up, and we've made sure that we do one every week. So sticking to it, which I feel like is important. Mm-hmm. Yep. What are we talking about today?
Balancing family and business.
Oh, awesome. So when Zach puts this on YouTube, the thumbnail can read the top 10 things not to do when you have a young family and a business, because I'm trying to figure this out as we go.
Kim, if you're listening, here you go.
Yeah, we need Kim on here. That's what we need.
Yes.
But
I think that'd be a fun episode.
Oh, yeah.
She'd bring some character.
Yeah.
I want her to come on.
Yeah, she will.
The ninth one. She'll
Yeah. But it's a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody. I feel like it's not necessarily just somebody that runs their own business, but there are a lot of unique challenges to it if you have your own business. So we can talk about all that kind of stuff today.
Yeah, and your kids are younger. It's not like they're 13 and.
Yeah, we had some big time challenges, and we can get into that a little bit. But we had some big time challenges when they were real young, like 1 and 4. But every day, Brooklyn being able to dress herself it changes your life. Like, you don't think about that, but I'm not a huge fan of the newborn phase. I mean, I'm just a dude, You
want to throw a ball with them.
They can't play catch.
They can't do anything.
They can't do anything. It's cool in its own right, but when they get to the age where they get potty trained, and then they can feed themselves, and then they can get their own drink, and then they can go get dressed, and they can do that. I mean, every little movement towards self sustainability, I guess,
self-care.
Self-care. It makes your life as a parent a lot easier, but it's also kind of sad because it's like, oh man, we're not going back there again. Like, I want Brooklyn to stay 3 for the rest of her life. If she could stay right where she's at right now, it would make me so happy. But
yeah. So let's talk about the story of you had to miss your hunt for Brooklyn to be born.
Oh yeah, there's a great example of that. So Rhett was 3. And at the time, I was doing a lot of work for Winchester, a lot of print advertising for them, and we were getting geared up to start the huge phase of their catalog, which we'd always try to have it done around SHOT Show, which is the first part, January of the following year. So, people that understand magazine layout, production, and editorial, you're working a couple of months ahead of that deadline, because you have to lay everything out, get it ready, go to press, have the physical copy there. So you work back from the date where you want the physical copy. So it was October 28th, and I'd been working on the stuff for a month. We were kind of having a check-in meeting, scheduling a couple photo shoots, talking about the home stretch of this. And I try to go back home to Illinois to hunt every year for a couple weeks during the rut. And so I was buttoning up everything at work. I had all my stuff packed. I was going to leave the 1st of November. And Kim was due December 10th with our second child. So me being a dude, I'm like, well, December 10th, that's when it's going to be. I can go work and deer hunt and then come back, catch up on a bunch of work, and then we're going to have a kid, And I was literally on a conference call with them, and Kim called me 3 times in a row. And, that's never good, because Kim's not a dramatic person at all. And I was like, uh-oh, something happened. She called me. She's like, I'm in labor. And I was like, okay. Okay. So this was, I guess that's 6 weeks early. And Boone is not a big town. We don't have a big hospital here. And so anything earlier than 35 weeks, they send you off the mountain to a different hospital where they have a NICU. So literally, the whole whirlwind. I'm on a conference call at 10 a.m. By noon, I called some friends of ours and said, "Hey, I got to go to the NICU in Winston-Salem with Kim, which is 2 hours away. Can you watch Rhett tonight?" Dumped Rhett off with Shane Cass. Followed an ambulance. They put Kim in an ambulance and drove her down to Wake Forest Baptist, I think it is, in Winston. I'm following her. We get there, and Brooklyn wasn't. She wasn't really like a premature baby. I almost think they got her due date wrong, but she just came early. Like there were no complications. She was 6.5 pounds. She just came early, and so. But they freak you out there. You get to the hospital and they're talking about all the potential complications of a premature baby and all this kind of stuff. And they're like, when they put Kim in the ambulance, they gave her a shot to help develop the lungs of the baby. That's the last thing to develop before the baby is born, because obviously they don't need lungs in the womb. So with those premature babies, when they're coming, they give them a shot that rapidly stimulates lung development.
Weird.
Before they're born. And then that's the biggest concern then, is that we need these lungs to develop quick. So they're giving her shots. They're talking about, we can try to hold back labor for another maybe 24 hours and hopefully the baby develops, or we can go do an emergency C-section right now. And Kim had a C-section with Rhett, so we're like, let's just go do the C-section right now. So I'm not kidding you, at 10 a.m., I'm finishing up some work and planning my deer hunt. At 5 a.m., I have a second child. and that's how quick it happened. We had driven there. I went down to Brooklyn's room. Kim was on a different floor, and she was up there for 48 hours, I think, and then she got to move down, and we stayed in the Ronald McDonald house there. 'Cause they kept Brooklyn for like a week as for just precautionary deal, and make sure her weight was going to get held up. But she was fine. She's always been fine, and she's been great. But that is an example of balancing work and family and how it actually works.
Yeah.
It doesn't freaking work.
So
you just try to do the best you can.
Were you guys here in your, were you in your studio or were you somewhere else?
We didn't move here till 2 years ago.
Right.
So we were living up behind Samaritan's Purse at that point.
Oh, okay.
So, but my parents literally got on a flight then that night and flew down. So they were there to help out. And we stayed down at Winston for a week, and then I had to get back to doing some work, so I drove back and forth a few days to work. But just it's an example of, you just figure it out as you go.
Yeah.
You try to keep priorities where they need to be, but just keep going. And my clients were real understanding about that. It just not something I couldn't.
You can't control that.
Control it.
Brooklyn said, "I am here. The fun has arrived."
and we don't have parents in town, so obviously my rut hunt was shot. I mean, we're bringing home a premature baby from the hospital, and we have a 3-year-old. So I'm not leaving for 2 weeks to go to Illinois.
Right.
So that was shot, but Shay and I ended up. It's funny. Shay and I ended up buying a farm. I was in the NICU in Winston when we were signing the paperwork on it. So it's like when you lose your dog and you go buy a puppy. It tells everybody, like, I lost my deer hunt, so I bought a farm instead to fill the void. But yeah, and after that, after that was COVID. So this would have been like October before COVID hit, and so that was crazy. So it was like Brooklyn was like over a year old before she was in a restaurant.
Oh.
Because those premature babies, you try to kind of keep them, especially in the wintertime during flu season and stuff. You don't want to get them out in restaurants and exposed to all that. And then COVID hit in like February-ish, right after that. She was only 3 months old. So that poor girl had like a crazy wild start to life.
Major quarantine.
Major quarantine, that's for sure.
Poor thing.
And then I think the following year is when we closed on this place and moved out here.
Okay.
So
gotcha.
And talking about work and family, I feel like There's pros and cons to everything. And having your own business, there are pros and cons to that for sure when it comes to having a family. The setup we have now, we've got 8.5 acres. We've got a house, and then we had a 4,000 square foot building here that we renovated. So we bought all that together, and then we renovated the building into my studio, which we're in now. An informal gallery, like it's not open to the public or anything. And then we have a warehouse space that we finished off, and we have, tongue and groove ceiling and put all the sheetrock. We only moved the foundation in one spot and poured new footers and expanded a wall out. But, for the most part, it's a pretty dang good setup overall. I work from the property that we have our home on, but I don't necessarily work from home. One of the reasons we did that and moved out here is that I was running out of space and needed more space for inventory, but also the family's getting bigger. I mean, you guys have seen how many times Brooklyn comes running in here. If I'm in a spare bedroom working in our actual house, it triples.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons we moved out here.
Yeah.
So, but I took a few notes for this podcast. This is the first podcast I've ever had notes for, but there's some pros. There are absolutely some pros to what we have here. The first is I get to see the kids every day. I mean, I see Brooklyn and Rhett all the time. I take Rhett to school every morning and then come back. They're at different schools now. Brooklyn's in like a daycare, pre-kindergarten, preschool thing. And Rhett is in a different school, and they start at different times. So to kind of help Kim out, I take Rhett to school and then come back to work. And then she goes into ASU and works part-time and drops Brooklyn off there. So I have lunch every day with Brooklyn when she comes back. If Kim's coming back out this way. As soon as I'm off work, I get to see the kids. There's no commute. And so things like that are really valuable. One of the things about Boone is that there are a lot of jobs, but it's a lot of tourist type stuff, a lot of restaurants, hotels, service industry type deals. You can work at ASU, but if you really want to do well, you really need to own your own business. And on the years where we've done really well and I make a good income, I'd have to be like an assistant football coach at ASU, like not the head coach, not that kind of money, but and if you're doing that, you're gone all the time. Like you're traveling all the time. And so that's a perk to owning my own business and working here, is that we can make a good income, but I don't have to be on the road all the time. And I really like that. I like seeing the kids all the time. I think it's hard when you leave for a long period of time. You kind of have to make up that time. You're trying to make up that time with your kids. And at this age, they're growing so fast, there's no making up that time. It's gone. It's lost. So there are a lot of perks. One of the things, too, that we don't really talk about a lot, but I like the fact that the kids are seeing their dad work. I think that there's a lot of times where some of these kids these days, and I sound like an old man talk here, but when I was growing up, I watched my parents go to work. Like my dad farmed. I watched what he was doing. I watched, and there was a lot of people and a lot of my generation watched their parents physically work. Now, if dad leaves at 7 a.m. and commutes to an office in the inner city and gets home at 7 p.m., the kids don't know where that money came from. Like, dad just goes away and comes back, and we have a pool in the backyard.
Right.
And they don't understand they don't understand what happens when they leave. And I'm not. It happens for women too. I'm not going to try to get canceled here. Like,
yeah.
Like the man leaves in a suit and tie and comes home to see Timmy and Susie, and the wife has food on the table. We're not going there. I'm talking in terms of me working, because that's the only frame of reference I have. But I think a lot of times when the dad, just goes away and comes back, and then there's money in the bank account, like it's hard for kids to comprehend that. And I think that there's times where I want them to see me struggle. I want them to see me work and put in late nights. And I want them to see that money is not free. It doesn't grow on trees, and you actually have to earn that. And so I think that's a benefit to working this close to the house and balancing family that way. I don't have to ask off. If I want to go somewhere or do something, I don't have to. That's also a con, and we can get into the cons because I hardly ever take any time off. This year, when I was painting for Seawee, I wasn't doing a lot of client work. And when I'm doing a lot of client work and a lot of projects, there is no leaving. Like, I would go to my parents' house in Illinois to deer hunt, and I would bring my entire Mac, like unplug my 27-inch iMac and have backup hard drives and all my crap. And I would sit out of hunts for the morning and do actual work, like set up an office in their living room and then hunt in the afternoons. And that's what I had to do to keep work going. Like, it's on my shoulders, and I can't just take off because no one's getting it done. And, and this year was the first time I didn't bring work with me on a deer hunting trip. But before that, I literally had not taken a work-free vacation in over a decade. In some form of fashion, I worked every single trip. Now, again, there's a pro and a con to that. Sometimes I work from a deer stand, on my phone, coordinating stuff. Sometimes it's a laptop when we're on vacation with the kids somewhere. And, Kim takes them, and I just work for an hour or two in the morning and get stuff done. So there's a pro and a con to that. Yes, you have the freedom to do it. It's like ultimate freedom and ultimate responsibility when you own your own business, and the buck stops with me. Like, I have to make things work. I can't. There's nobody I can blame or pass it off onto. If it doesn't work, it comes back to me. I have a tendency, a lot of people have a hard time focusing when they're at home. Like, I've heard people say, I get distracted when there's chores or something to do around the house and I can't get my work done. I'm the opposite. I have a hard time turning it off when I go home at night. And that's a hard deal because it's hard for me to separate work and cut that off and go home and be present with the kids sometimes, and with Kim as well. So that's my struggle with the cons, is that I tend to bear too much of the burden and not be able to shut it off and leave it at the office.
Do you think the kids, they might be too young, but do you think they know, and understand what you do? Or do you think they just are kind of like, oh, Dad's painting again? Or
Rhett is 6, and we are at the age where we're going to start, really working on him and teaching him. I know Dave Ramsey has that financial piece for kids, and I thought about getting that for him to start teaching him. Here's what you do: you save, you tithe, you earn, you work for it. He's old enough, and he's really smart. He's smart enough; he can start grasping that kind of stuff. Brooklyn has no idea.
Yeah,
she's completely clueless. And she lives in her own little.
She's only 3, though.
She's only 3, but she lives in her own little way. I don't think they can comprehend. It absolutely crushes my soul when, I was painting a lot for Seawee and I was working Saturdays, and I've always been one to, pull a Saturday morning. But he'll say things like, Dad, I'm tired of you working on Saturdays.
Oh.
Do you have to work on Saturday again? And stuff like that. And it kills your heart.
Yeah.
He said something the other day that just crushed me. I can't remember what it was. But, it's hard when they say stuff like that. He said something like, Brooklyn said, when I was leaving for a trip, and she's like, I don't like it when you go, Daddy. I want to just take you and keep you here with me, and stuff like that will kind of break your heart. But, and again, in the grand scheme of things, I don't travel that much. I'm here a lot. Those kids, they just don't really understand it. They're just young.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we're also in kind of a weird phase in business right now too. I'm investing a lot in growth, new people, new products, and you guys have seen by now, new stuff comes with hiccups and glitches and crap you got to fix. And it's kind of funny because it's ironic that we're talking about this right now, because we had a printer issue yesterday.
Don't get me started.
Mad dog about
I
went
went
office
mad.
space on the printer. We're trying to get sketch drops done and printed. We were having a printer issue we weren't really going anywhere. I told Madison, just go home and I'm going to look at it. And I worked on it till about 7:30. And then at 7:30, I went back over and I've started answering emails with our agency who was doing the e-blast, launching that, getting that out. There were some product things we had to tweak. So, I went into the house about 8:30, ate a quick dinner, put Rhett down, poured myself a stiff margarita. And then, Kim and I had one of those conversations till after midnight about how stressed out I am. And we're just, and she's told me, she's like, the past few weeks when you come home, you are not here. And I know I'm not there because we're doing all kinds of crap here. And admittedly, I'm not even good at like managing people and projects. I don't like to project manage. It's stretched me extremely thin mentally. And so for about the past 3 weeks, I go home and I'm fried. I'm drained. I'm literally spending my entire days doing things that I don't want to do, but it's the right thing to do in the short term to get us to the next step. And so, I'm drained. I need a break. That's not fair to the kids, and Kim too. Like they need my best when I get off of work, and they have not been getting it. So Kim and I have had that conversation that like this is just kind of a season in life that it's just where we're at right now. I've said I'm going to give it a solid year to try to grow and try to implement a lot of the stuff that we're doing right now to really push and give it my best effort. But it's not easy. It's draining on me. And then, get to bed about 12:30. I'm back up at 6. I skip my workout to tweak some product pages, get the product live, coordinate last minute things with the agency, take Rhett to school, come here, and then we have hiccups all morning long. And that's kind of like where we have been for a few weeks, and it destroys me mentally. And so that's something that I have to balance and something that I have to take into account, that this has to be a season in my life. And that's why I tell Kim, is like, you got to just be patient with me. Like, I know I'm a turd right now. I know that like my brain is mush. We'll be riding in the car somewhere and I'm not all there, but I'm working things out and I'll get there eventually. So,
Yeah.
so, but so many things like that are just seasonal, and it's just part of how it is. And, as far as the balance, so I don't really feel like I feel like there's a myth of work-life balance. Like, if you're really going to do anything and you're going to be successful and you're going to put your effort into it, you're going to have to go all in one area of life at some point in time for a period of time. And then that might have to shift and you go all in a different place. Like I try to stay as balanced as I can and keep my head and just kind of have a rhythm to things. But the fact of the matter is there's never going to be a just perfect 9 to 5 where everything goes swimmingly and I just, go home and hug my kids at night. It's just not going to happen. You have to balance. And I try to recognize when I'm taking too much from the family, and so I can turn back around and give a little bit more.
Yeah.
So, Madison, I can tell you're like flustered. You're like, I don't ever want to have kids like this. Not that you wouldn't. But.
I'm getting ready to get married next year, so
Yeah.
I'm already just like, kids just change everything. They change everything. But it's like, I'll be like, I don't want kids. I'm just going to have dogs and pets, and they don't talk back to me, blah, 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 blah. But then it's like, I go to Easter service and I see Rhett up there singing and doing his little hand motions, and he's all into it. And I'm like, that's so cute.
Yeah.
And then Brooklyn's like, just standing up there trying to get next to her brother, and then she gets mad and goes in the back, crosses her arms. But it's just still like so cute. And so I don't know. Yeah, it just seems like a fluster.
It is. And you just have to learn to roll with the punches.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just all the analogies they tell you of like, it's the hardest thing you'll ever do and the most rewarding, and you'll never fully be ready.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of how running your own business and entrepreneurship is. You're never going to be freaking ready. You just got to launch sometimes.
You just got
to
do it.
go, and you just got to figure it out. you got to learn to fly the plane in the air as you go. And, but it's the most rewarding thing ever. I just really like being a dad. I like coaching. I coach Reds T-ball and basketball teams and stuff. And I really get a lot out of that. And I really do like it. Yeah, everything, running your own business is a challenge, but at the end of the day, it's like rich people problems. You know what I'm saying? It's like we don't really have problems. Our problems are not really problems. They're like printer problems.
First world problems.
First world problems. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
Not rich people, but like first world problems. Like the printer doesn't work.
Yeah.
Something like that. That's the biggest challenge we're facing day to day. So, you got to keep that in perspective. Overall, we've got it really good, and I've got a really good setup here. But it's something that there's no quick, easy solution to. You just got to do the best you can all the time.
And I feel like those rewarding situations or moments too are like when you take Rhett hunting or something, and he gets a deer, or I don't know. Has he ever gotten a turkey yet?
No.
And it'll be his first one.
Yeah.
If he gets one. Mm-hmm. He'll get one.
All those firsts are really rewarding, and I like it. He asked me to coach his teams.
Aww.
He said, "You coach my team, Dad?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll coach your team." So I really like that, and then the crazy thing is, like, the time flies. These kids are not getting any younger, and they're growing fast, and I try to keep in the back of my head, like, this is happening quick. And if I get too wrapped up in some dumb work project, I'm going to miss a lot, and I don't want to miss that. So
that'll be like that time Brooklyn came in and was like, "Daddy, will you paint me? Will you draw me?"
Yeah.
And you're like, "I'll only draw you if you stay 3 forever." And I was like, "Oh." Brooklyn and Ryan's conversations just make me cry. They're just so cute.
That's my baby. She's got a lot of personality too, and she lives in her own little world.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's pretty cool.
She's so cute. She's warmed up to me now too. She'll like come in and start talking to me now. And I'm like, "Oh, good." Yeah. She's like, not, Rhett's still like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
I said hey to him at church, and he's like, "Hey."
He gets embarrassed and shy real
he
quick.
was so embarrassed. I said, "Go sing good, buddy."
Yeah.
He was like, "Who are you?"
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Well, what else?
I mean, I guess I didn't prepare well for this one. Sketch Drop has ruined me.
Sketch Drop got us. Yeah, there's definitely nobody to bail you out when you were a small operation, for sure.
Yeah.
And I tell people that all the time. Like, Kim comes from like a big time corporate background. She has an MBA. She worked at Wells Fargo, works in the College of Business, all that kind of stuff. And she is like really on it.
She's very sharp, very
structured. And she's big into like job descriptions. So when we're like hiring people, like, well, what's the job description say? What we're going to do? And I'm like, "Kim, I don't know what I'm doing 2 months from now. Like, how on earth am I going to write a job description for somebody when I don't know what I'm doing? And if I have to pivot, they have to pivot.
Yeah.
Like, that's just the name of the game. And we're just going to, it is, and the beauty of being a smaller business is that you can move fast. You can pivot quick, and you can take an advantage of opportunities. But that also comes with its own set of challenges. Like, I tell everybody, there's never been a single day since I started 10 years ago where I just showed up and it's like, I'm going to do the same thing I did yesterday and just coast. It just doesn't happen. It can't happen if you're going to be good at it.
Yeah.
So it's so cliche, the term that's thrown out, but you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's kind of where I've lived for a while.
Yeah. I felt like I've really stretched being here when you were like, the job is figuring out problems, solving problems every day. That's all you got to do, really, is solve the problem. And so I've kept that in my head. I've been like yesterday, I was not going to come get you. I was going to come do it myself. And then I think you heard me yelling at it. And you were like, Mad Dog, do you need some help? And I
I
was
heard
like,
the printer
no.
slam, and I was like, oh God.
I,
Where's
the-
Rhett's baseball bat?
Yeah, I was like, no, I was not. I was, okay, backstory. The tray wouldn't. It's a jankety printer. It is.
It's not a jankety printer.
It is. I've named her after Moaning Myrtle from Harry Potter, all you guys. I'm sure there's some people that know. But, gosh, it wouldn't the tray wouldn't shut.
Yeah.
And so it kept throwing out that stupid, loaded paper error. And then she just started cycling a paper through and spitting it out and wouldn't print anything on it. And then it would just do that. And so I was like, okay.
You need to go watch Office Space. Like tonight,
I
you need to
know.
go watch it. You'll get a kick out of that, the printer scene in Office Space. But one of the biggest things, and you know, I grew up watching my dad and uncles, and the amount of times I've walked up to a Gleaner combine in a cornfield and seen their 3 sets of legs sticking out from under that thing, cussing and beating and pissed off, and they, you know, if they don't fix it, we've never had a new combine ever. And I say I didn't own it. They never had a new combine ever. We always had Gleaner, and they just, you get in there, and if you're a farmer, if you don't get your corn out, you don't get paid. Like, that's how it is. You got to get that corn out. And so they'd be sitting there cussing and beating on that thing and all pissed off, and now I get it. You know, I didn't understand it then, but now I get it. And but that's the nature of it. I've learned to kind of keep my head about me and like, all right, let's try this, let's try that, let's do this, let's do that. Because if you overreact, it's going to make the problem even worse. But, you know, one of the things that I've really built my career on is you have to solve problems. And, you know, we talked as like an artist, I'm a communicator, but you really have to solve problems. And in life, the bigger problem you're willing to solve, the bigger the profit, the more money you're going to make. Okay? Like, if your biggest skill in life is like raking leaves, you're going to earn so much. If your biggest skill in life is a heart surgeon, you're solving a much bigger problem. And so you're going to make more money. And so the nature of what we do, if we're going to succeed, we have to solve problems. End of story. There's no one else to do it. Like, you can hire it out sometimes, but you know, you have to be in the business of solving problems over and over and over and over and over again. And if you're not cut out for that, then you do not need to run your own business. If you're the type that just wants to like raise your hand and have the boss come over and fix it for you, then you do not need to run your own business, because it ain't going to work and you're going to be miserable.
And even then, you probably don't want to go to corporate America or something, because the boss really doesn't want to come help you.
No. It is not an area, if you want to do well, it is not an area that you can coast in about anything. And I've even done that with you know, clients like, you know, Winchester and Browning. When I was doing a lot of their work, we were having a hard time getting photography. And finally, I just took it on myself, like, just send me the ammo and I'll figure it out. So I started hiring photographers, and then met Paul, my photographer now that we use all the time, and have learned, like, I've literally spent entire days, you know, with white latex gloves, polishing ammo with Brasso for photo shoots. And I've had to learn how to solve bigger problems. And so client has a problem. We don't have good product photography that shows it well. If you can solve that for them, you can make money. But you can't involve them in that. You can't make their life more difficult. It's like, I have to solve the problem and give you a solution to it. And if you can do that, you can do really well at just about anything.
It really hit home too when you were like, don't bring your boss the problem, bring them the solution. Yeah. And I was like, okay.
I learned that there was a buddy of mine, Mike Oates, that he was an older guy. He was probably 50 when I was like early 20s, something like that. And I really respected how he ran his life, his work. He was real successful. But just the kind of guy that's like, I want my life to look like that when I'm his age. And I said, hey man, would you mind like mentoring me, for lack of a better term? Like, just hang out with me every now and then. Come to breakfast. I'll buy you breakfast. So we started meeting at Waffle House off of Exit 5 in right across from in North Augusta. And on his way to work, about a Friday once a month, we would sit there and we'd eat Waffle House. And just really kind of talk about life, no agenda or anything like that. And it was, I think I'd been at the Turkey Fed like 2 years by then. And I needed a lot of grace when I first came out of college. I remember I didn't know the stuff that I do now. And we talked about everything: marriage, friends, life, divorce, all kinds of stuff. And he was a boss, so he had people underneath him. And I remember I needed a lot of grace and coaching from people. Like, I always had the talent and the drive, but I just wasn't really mature. I didn't understand how business works. I don't really get that. And it was like my second year at the Turkey Federation, and we were talking about something, and he told me something I'll never forget. He's like, don't ever bring a problem to your boss. He's like, your boss has enough problems as it is. And owning a business, I've seen that too. Like, if you want to see what a mess can look like, go check my inbox, because I've got to handle parts and pieces of everything. And when I was a designer at the Turkey Federation, I just had my little world that I lived in, and I didn't understand that there was anything outside of my little world. And he's like, dude, your boss has so many bigger problems to handle than what you're going to bring to him. Don't bring him a problem, bring him a solution. And he's like, if you want to stand out, you do that. And I've learned that with clients too. It helps a ton. If I identify a problem, I don't just come to them and say, what do you want me to do? I say, hey, I found this problem. I've thought about it. Here's 3 solutions that I think will solve it. This is what A is. That's going to cost this. That's going to take this much time. This is what it's going to look like. This is what B is. This is what C is. What would you like to do? And a lot of times they'll either pick one, like, let's go with B, or let's go with A with a couple tweaks, and we're good. And it's benefited a lot for me working with clients, but also I try to tell everybody here, like, don't bring me problems. I got 35 problems that showed up in my inbox this morning that I got to handle. I can't solve another one for you. You bring me solutions, and that's when we start rolling. Because I don't need anything else dumped in my lap, and nobody's boss does, and their boss doesn't either. And the higher you go up that food chain, the bigger the problems get for people. So that's always helped me, and I think people could benefit from that.
Yeah, I've learned that. I'll be like, how can I help you, Ryan? Please tell me how I can be here for you. And then you'll be like, don't worry.
You need to make friends with, what's the printer's name? What do you call her?
Myrtle.
You
Or
need
Myrtle.
to make friends with Myrtle. You need to make up.
We're in a toxic relationship right now. We are.
Well, I see sketch drop orders coming in right now, so
So
we're gonna have
let's
to
go fight
make
with
that
them
up
again.
quick.
Yeah.
But yeah, sketch drop is happening this week. Let's see, this will air later next week, so we're just about done. Again, we've got 4 sketches and a 5th bonus one if you purchase the 4 Grand Slam. But we've got 4 sketches, and when they're done, they're done. They won't be available any more after that. So you've got just probably 24 hours to buy those.
You have till Thursday the 13th.
Thursday the 13th,
the
when
last
Mad Dog
day.
cuts it off.
All right.
So we appreciate it. See you guys.
Thanks.